Because they are no longer the top dog in the Olympics, the US now wants to expand its kinetic and trade wars into the sporting arena, or at least into the anti-drug section of the sporting arena. Wherever you are, welcome to another edition of My Take on China from my own home. China was once an insecure country, but a lot has changed. Not just the space station, which is clean, tidy, and accessible, nor an undisputed moon landing and return, nor the fact that it now has the world's largest army and a bigger navy than the USA. Not even the communications, because 5G is literally everywhere in this vast country, nor the microchip issues, because after China suffered a setback, it's the US which is hurting from a self-inflicted wound. No, China has nothing at all to be insecure about. Increasing wealth, the complete eradication of absolute poverty, stark reductions in crime, increases in life expectancy, which all lead to a country that is well managed, well governed, with a healthy environment. And that's a good place to live. But because of this, they're now able to do something they couldn't do 50 years ago, and that is produce great athletes. Each of those factors, and there are many more, exist because of one reason. The reason is US insecurity. They pushed China into being self-sufficient and self-sustaining. Now they want to share China's success and borrow some of China's moon rocks, despite writing their own legislation to prevent that ever happening. They have a military which has a record of failure, or at best, a record of not succeeding. And they have an industry, not specifically, but including their military industry, which by its own admission relies on their adversary, the one they have created just to survive. Lance Armstrong was the greatest cyclist in history, until it was confirmed he was a drug cheat. His excuse at the time was that everyone was doing it. He wasn't just a cheat, he was the best cheat of all. Tonya Harding was one of the greatest figure skaters in the world, but there was someone better than her. So her estranged husband decided that the best thing to do was break her rival's legs. It's very sad that today in the US we see a nation that reflects those fallen values, an entire government that is prepared to cheat to remain in a position of primacy, a position their predecessors earned, but now, like an aging athlete, are not strong enough to keep. The US has found it can't maintain hegemony through skills, experience, or prowess, and has decided that cheating in the global arena, in sports, trade, military, and economics, is the best way forward. And then when that fails too, hobbling the opposition is the fallback strategy. Waking athletes up at 5 a.m. on the day of a competition is not fair or reasonable. Testing an athlete more than once in a day is not fair or reasonable. Being tested 7 times in a day is absolutely abusive, and when all these tests are finished, what's more unreasonable is the lack of acceptance of the results. The US has questioned WADA, the Canadian-based anti-doping agency, about how Chinese swimmers were allowed to continue competing after being tested for a banned substance a year ago. China informed WADA of this situation. It happened during a training session before the Tokyo Olympics, during the COVID pandemic, and WADA were not present at the training camp. Now note the important part of the story. It happened when the Chinese anti-doping agency informed WADA. WADA investigated and cleared the swimmers because the kitchen of the hotel was found to be tainted with the same banned substance. Perhaps sabotage, who knows? Now, both the White House and the US Anti-Doping Agency want answers to questions that have nothing to do with them. Furthermore, the US has now opened a criminal investigation and wants to issue arrest warrants for people they deem guilty of cheating in sports. But here's the rub. They aren't interested in pursuing US athletes, only Chinese. Just imagine what would happen if China or Russia issued an arrest warrant for an American cheat. There'd be an outcry in English language media, and the Chinese and Russian courts would be full, because the US have made an art form out of cheating. And every system that they're in, they cheat in. What many didn't know until a supposed Russian hack in 2016 is that, like lobbying has legalized corruption, the therapeutic use exemptions legalized taking banned substances in sport, and the US have taken advantage of this. The US team is awash with athletes who need their TUEs, including this year's US darling of the gym, Simone Biles, and tennis legend Serena Williams. Between 2014 and 16, there was an increase in application for therapeutic exemptions. 63% were issued to 3 countries, USA, Australia, and France. Is it possible that these countries have such seriously ill people performing at the peak of the world's athletic tables? Probably not. But let's consider for a moment what the US is actually thinking about doing. They want to issue arrest warrants for people who have not only committed no crime, but have actually been tested and then exonerated by WADA as being innocent. Then, just so they can make more of a media circus of the entire spectacle, the US have subpoenaed the head of the International Swimming Federation to appear before their criminal investigation for an alleged crime that didn't happen in the US, didn't happen under any US jurisdiction, nor were they crimes against any US national, and in fact they're not even crimes at all because there are no criminal statutes in the world for people cheating at sport. The US wants to make it a crime, but only if the defendant is Chinese or Russian. WADA, for the record, describes these allegations as highly charged, politically motivated criticism. Western media, however, is full of outrage about how the impossible has occurred. An impoverished nation just a generation ago has overtaken the leaders in sport, as well as every other measurable metric. The only response left available to the US is to double down and do their best to hobble the competition in every field they can, because if the recent hacked and leaked information about the US use of these therapeutic exemptions is relied upon, they're already the greatest sporting cheats. And this is yet another of their deflection tactics to point critics in the other direction. Thanks very much for watching my take on China, and I hope to see you again soon. I will be back with a couple of special episodes from my travels in Tibet and also my travels just recently in Guizhou. So look forward to them. See you again.